because some of y'all can't see it, I'm sure. It says, I want to be full of Christ, so full of Christ, that if I have a mosquito bite me, it flies away singing, there is power in the blood. So, before going to church camp with the youth, I like to be funny and I like to be ornery, and I'm not good at it sometimes, but I just decided I would get some little t-shirt assistance. So I bought 6 or 7 t-shirts to take to camp and wear every day for the kids at church camp with the youth camp, and I got this reputation. What's he wearing today? What shirt is he going to have on today? And they were all just funny religious t-shirts, and it gave me a little bit more of a personality. And so it worked out pretty good. We had a good time at our youth camp, and we've got some exciting news. I'll be sharing some of that with you today. This message today is probably more teaching than preaching, but because I'm wound up about it, it may come across as more proclamation and preaching than teaching, because I'm pretty excited about it. And I'm excited because of the studies that I've been doing over the last several months to bring this message. When I was having a devotional with my wife one morning, we watched the Our Daily Bread devotionals. If you have been here long enough, you know that we have these little Our Daily Bread devotionals in the back that we get every quarter, and you're welcome to have one of those if you'd like. And they are just little daily devotionals, but they also have a YouTube site that has an audio reading every morning and a video devotional. And one of these video devotionals with my wife that I watched, I immediately knew by the Spirit, I said, this one's going to be preached at Westside. And whenever I feel like the Lord and Roger has given me a green light to do that, I would bring this message to Westside, because I feel it is extremely important, and I hope you'll do the same. So if everybody has a copy, we only made 50 per section, so some couples may need to share, but if you didn't get one and want one, I see Jacob has a few more and in the back, and if there's some up here that didn't get one, I'd appreciate it. I only printed 100 at first. I wanted to feel fully convicted by the Spirit that everybody should have one of these, and this morning when I woke up and I begun my sermon in the shower, which is usually what happens every Sunday morning. I'm preaching in the shower, and sometimes the Lord is telling me to get rid of the fleshly parts of the statements that you think, oh, this isn't by the Spirit, this is me. And you're just giving all that to the Lord, and you're saying, okay, take over the sermon today, and may your words be my words. And in the process of that, I felt really convicted about the sermon enough this morning that I wanted everybody to have a copy of this. So I'll have you follow along a little bit later. Please don't get too far ahead of me, or it'd be kind of difficult, I'm sure. So I want you to do something first that I don't do normally. I want you to repeat after me. Lost, saved. Saved, trained. Trained, sent. This is a phrase that you're going to be hearing from Brother Roger quite often in this future of this church. Probably for the rest of the year, I'm assuming, in some way, shape, or form. And yes, I did have permission from him to proclaim this today. I'm not trying to steal his thunder or anything. The lost saved, the saved trained, and the trained sent. If you're around me, you know I like to make things simpler. LSSTTS. That helps me remember. That is the goal of what we should be doing at Westside. It really should be the goal of most every church. But at this church, this is what we want to focus on. This wants to be our culture. This is what we want to do here at Westside. We want to see the lost saved. We want to see saved people trained. And we want to see trained people sent out. Roger preached a sermon, I don't know how long ago, that really touched my heart, because he did some research on the Apostle Paul in Antioch before he ever left. And he was in Antioch at least 1.5 years or 2 years before he ever set sail to evangelize people. And a lot of people in churches, I think they miss that. There's a training process we ought to go through. Sunday school, life groups, that ought to be part of what the ambition is of those groups here, to do those things, to be trained. When you learn that the Apostle Paul himself was there for 1.5 years, 2 years before he ever set foot on a boat to go and evangelize the world, the Gentiles, he prepared for 1.5 years to 2 years. And that really stuck me, that this is something I think a lot of churches probably struggle with, trying to figure out, well, how do we train people in the ministry, and what does that look like, and why ought they do it, and not us all the time from the minister's pulpit or us ministers. And I think all of the programs, all of the events, the activities, the outreaches, all the things that we do here and participate in here at Westside ought to have that phrase in mind, LSSTTS. I think also, though, you're going to have to be prepared that the secular world's not going to make sense of what it means to be lost and saved. To them, if they're lost, they just turn on Google Maps, put it in, and go. Okay, so sometimes we're going to have to rethink our phrasing. The word righteousness doesn't mean anything to anybody anymore. They don't know what that means. Holiness, they definitely don't know what that means anymore. Sanctification, the world doesn't know what these things anymore. So sometimes we got to take a step out of our religiosity in those words and start bringing things down to a level that people can understand. And so the lost saved, we need to make sure and understand that's people not following Jesus who have chosen to follow Jesus. People who are going to hell or that are now going to heaven. People who are confused about their identity. They're confused about the meaning of life, why they exist on this planet. What is their purpose in life and why are they here? All of those things are from darkness into light. So we might have to have some different phraseology there. But everything that we do at Westside needs to be, in my view, and I think Brother Roger's view, to be into the fold of those three things. And that's what we're trying to accomplish. Because you're going to come up and you're going to have difficult things in life. It's been a difficult weekend of preparation thinking about this because of what happened down in Texas. It's been awfully difficult. But God is the God of the universe. And the divine irony for here at Westside, in my youth group here at Westside, is the fact that I let Jacob Jackson, one of my youngsters, teach and preach this Wednesday night to the group. And one of the things he brought up was doubt. And he brought up three things in his life that have created doubt. He never doubted God's existence. It wasn't like he was doubting his faith or anything like that. They were just very challenging things that warrant doubt. And one of those that we not so ironically talked about now, Jacob, was natural evil. What natural evil is, as a Christian, we always talk about moral evil, what humans do one to another. But we forget about natural evil. What happens when God, who created the universe, makes it rain over one place for 15 inches, or so you think, and a bunch of little kids at a Christian camp die? People that age begin to wonder. And so Christians and Christianity, we got to be prepared to explain to them, look, the Bible's very clear, all of creation was messed up with the fall. It wasn't just human beings. The creation itself, the plant kingdom, the animal kingdom, meteorology, everything that has to do with anything was destroyed. It was broken. Now, God can intervene should he choose to intervene, but he lets nature run its course as well and intervenes when he chooses to, usually by the petition of his people. And so we had that discussion. So the God of the universe is still divine, and we were already prepared to face some of the news we've been hearing that was very difficult. I had news yesterday of one of the kids in the youth group that had to be rushed to the ER and is in surgery this morning. We just got good news about that surgery this morning. She should be able to come home today. So the God of the universe is still interested in what takes place in our daily life. The lost saved, trained, the trained sent. That's what we want to see happen at the church, or we're really wasting a lot of time, I think. So today I come bearing good news from that Westside youth group, your Westside children's group, over our 2 camp weeks. There were 13 youths at youth camp, 19 kids at kids camp. 10 of them made decisions to follow Jesus for the first time or to rededicate themselves. Amen. That's 31% of all the kids that went. Furthermore, I hope you get as blown away by this data, Kevin Day, and the rest of you guys out there that I do that are nerds like me. This ought to really twist some narratives that we've had and some of you have held for a long time. Okay? So stay with me here. There's a prestigious and really reputable research group out there in the Christian realm called the Barna Research Group. I use them all the time to learn about what society is doing. They have demonstrated here that, get this, American adults following Jesus has skyrocketed 12%. since 2021. 12%. Another organization, the American Bible Society, has found that 41% of adults that do not attend church are faithfully reading the Bible. 41% that don't go to church. In 2025, this year alone, we're up 3% from the previous year of adults that don't go to church who are reading the Bible faithfully. There's something stewing. Another report by Pew Research, those are the three that I research all the time. Get this, they showed in their recent study that 52% of teenagers are now very motivated to learn about Jesus. Over 50% of kids. So old-timers, guys in my age group, we've sort of risen in this culture that's seen America drift from Christianity. And we've sort of got it now because we've heard it so much that church attendance has been doing this for so long. The present research is saying there's something else brewing. And that ought to excite us. And I know it has to a nerd like me. So this data about the children, this isn't about kids that are in church. This is across the spectrum. Generation Z young men, which is men between the ages of 13 to 28. In the data, in those 5 years, from 2021 to 2025, commitment to Jesus rose 22%. Among millennial men, which is the ages 29 to 44, in those 5 years, commitment to Jesus rose 18%. So really, these are eyebrow-raising big deals. We can't, those of us that are older and been around a little bit, we've probably gotten into this realm of just sort of assuming morality's going down, America's going downhill, everything's getting bad, everybody's evil, church attendance is dwindling, and it's very easy and understandable. In our time, that was happening, but in these last 5 years, things have been stewing and brewing, and the Holy Spirit is moving. So don't be stuck in Swamp, Oklahoma, and forgetting what God's doing outside of it. If you remember back to February 8th, 2023, you remember this little Asbury revival that started to garner some national attention? It started as a little bit of prayer time for some college students after a chapel service. It grew into all-night praise and worship and went about for several days. At its peak, we know there were 3,000 people on campus attendees. We know that there were students from at least 22 other institutions that were there. Now, there could have been far more, but this is what we know. In 10 days during that revival, there were 63 million Asbury Revival views on TikTok. 63 million in 10 days. That was 2 years ago. As a result of the fervor and the zeal that these college students were receiving from the Spirit, revivals flared up at Cedarville University in Ohio, Samford University in Alabama, Lee and Belmont Universities in Tennessee, the University of the Cumberlands in Kentucky, Baylor, Texas A&M in Texas. That was just after the February revival. Now, the national attention has retreated a little bit, but I'm here to tell you, doing the research, the Holy Spirit's intensification across our nation has not. You're just not hearing about it on CNN and Fox News and places like that. You're not going to hear that. For example, did you all know that at the University of Arkansas, September of last year, 10,000 students gathered? Did you know that there were 2,000 salvations and 800 baptisms at the University of Arkansas in September of last year? The head football coach, University of Auburn, Hugh Freeze, used to be at Liberty, my wife's alma mater. He started baptizing some of his players in the lake there at the University of Auburn. Pretty soon, thousands of college students were around, and they received Christ, many of them, and he baptized kids in the lake. 4,000 gathered at the University of South Carolina. I bet you didn't hear that one. Hundreds of baptisms took place there in the library fountain, the campus fountain at the library. At Texas A&M, the Corpus Christi campus, we know of a place that housed 1,500. There were 62 baptisms documented there. And don't think that in 2025 it has stopped. It hasn't. Earlier this year, at the University of Purdue, 4,500 students attended and gathered. 2,250 or more declared faith in Jesus after the event. That's more than half of them. Half of the attendees. Earlier this year at the University of Kentucky, 8,000 attended, 2,000 made decisions. Earlier this year, 2025, at The Ohio State University, 6,500 attended, 2,000 responded to the altar calls. Several of the stories that have been cool to read along the way about that is a lot of these soon-to-be millionaire NFL athletes who were Christian were baptizing their student friends. It was just so cool to watch. And on Saturday, May 3rd, 2 short months ago, 7,752 were baptized in a state that's most definitely not in the Bible Belt. It was in Huntington Beach, California. Some of these were baptized in the Pacific. Some were baptized in these portable tubs. But 7,700 in California. So why am I telling you all of this data, all of this stuff? It is because faith in Jesus is skyrocketing across our nation at a miraculous rate. 9 of the 13 kids in the youth camp made decisions this year. Holy Spirit is calling people, particularly young ones, adult males. They're following Jesus. And why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this because we need to be prepared to do our part in exercising and executing the evangelism that Jesus requires of us. That's the crux right there, that Jesus requires of us. Had to get a hold of Sister Linda. I remember Boss preaching a sermon. Boss was the former pastor here. I called him Boss. 2 Timothy 4:5. He preached from that one time, and it stung me. And I knew he was kind of preaching right at me. He would never come right at me a lot of times, but he knew when I was listening, and he knew this one was going to get me. And it should get you, because it's the Bible, and I'm going to explain something about it. It says this, be watchful in all things, endure afflictions, do the work of an evangelist, fulfill your ministry. I used to assume that was just for those who were called to evangelism. That's not true. This is for everybody. All of us are to do the work of an evangelist. So now, I used to think, though, that this evangelism thing was for those who were spiritually gifted in it. That's what I used to think. Now, there is, make no mistake about it, a spiritual gift of evangelism that the Holy Spirit equips certain people to just be those spark plugs for the ministry. But I used to think that evangelism was just for those types of people. Wrong. The verse is very clear that all believers are to actively share the gospel. So there are lost people being saved all over this nation. And so here today, with the rest of this sermon, my purpose for this message is to train those of you who've been saved. The ST, the saved being trained. And so I want to ask you a question. I want you to think about something for a minute. What comes to your mind when it comes to, sharing your faith, evangelism, that E word with somebody else? And I'd be willing to bet the truth is there's probably a lot of mixed feelings about it when it comes to that E word. For me, I kind of used to believe it's kind of one extreme or the other. On one end you had those really trained people and they were just able to talk to fence posts and lead them to the Lord. These kind of superstar Christians. But then on the other end, you kind of had those people who were just kind of oddball enough to do it. They just sort of hoisted themselves on other people. They didn't really care how they thought or responded or felt. They were just sort of kind of doing their duty. Those were the two extremes I used to think about those who were evangelizing. And I don't know about you, but I don't really think I'm a superstar Christian. And on the other end, I don't want to be weird. I sort of think I'm just sort of somewhere in the middle, and I'd be willing to bet that most of you all feel the same. You're just kind of in the middle of that. We just kind of ordinary Christians. We love Jesus. We support our local church. We love to testify about him in our jobs and with those people around us. But we don't think we're some superstar. We're kind of right in the middle of that. But I also know that above verse that we just shared tells all of us to share our faith. So I do have some more good news for you. In 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verses 4 and 5, it says, "There are different kinds of gifts, but the same Spirit distributes them. There are also different kinds of service, but the same Lord." I think these verses could apply to the area of sharing our faith as well. And I think if we study a little bit, we can take different approaches of evangelism that fit who God made us to be. So there's a book called Contagious Faith, and that is where the majority of this comes from today. And the author out there outlines 5 contagious faith styles. And I think all of you in here could at least fit and match your personality to at least one of these styles of sharing your faith. You may be a combination of 2 or 3, but I think we'll see where the Lord takes us this morning on this. So, you can check out your papers now. The first style is the friendship building style. There's a disciple in Jesus' entourage, and his name's Matthew or Levi. And you know what he did? He had a party at his house to reach out to his friends. The story's found in Matthew chapter 9 or Luke chapter 5. And it says this: while Jesus was having dinner at Matthew's house, many tax collectors and sinners came and ate with him and his disciples. Now, the tax collectors were the most hated group of people in the ancient world. Nobody liked the tax collectors. They operated toll gates, essentially. And so if you had to pay, the Romans knew that you needed to pay $1 to get from here to Oklahoma City. And it was the tax collectors who would go, "I'll go bid it for $1.50. The Romans only want $1. I'll profit the 50 cents. And whichever tax collector sort of bid the lowest, but it was still higher than the Roman emperor wanted, they were the ones making all the dough. And everybody knew it. But because they had Rome backing them, there was nothing you could do about it. You pay $1.50. I don't care if the Romans want $1. You're going to pay $1.50 because this tax collector wants $1.50. So they were not liked individuals in the ancient world. And the Bible tells us, first of all, that one of them is a disciple of Jesus. That ought to put you at an altar right there. The second part about that story is he had his tax collector friends and sinners at his house eating with him. And so he used that. Jesus was there with him as a platform. He built a friendship with those who were lost and sinners and had them over for a party, and Jesus was there, and they introduced Jesus into the mix. So that is the friendship style. He built on the friendship of reaching others. Maybe that's you. You're not a superstar Christian, but you know how to make friends with those who aren't saved. You know how to open your home and say, "Hey, come over and let's watch a football game together. Hey, come have dinner. Let's do this." And then you build that friendship, and then you can begin to use that as a platform to share Jesus. So that's style number 1. Maybe that's you. Number 2 is the selfless serving style. There's a female disciple in the Bible named Tabitha in Acts chapter 9. And she made clothing for people in need. And in verse 36, it tells this about her. It says, she was always doing good and helping the poor. But then she died. Peter was like, And God was like, this one's not done. And he rushed in there and prayed over her. And she was resurrected. But she was a selfless servant who pointed people to Jesus through serving. We have a number of those people in our congregation today. I've got one in the youth group. He's not in the youth group anymore, Logan. He's a servant. It's just what he does. Half the time I get mad because he's over at my dad's house doing something I should probably be doing as his son, but he's in there crawling in dad's ponds to go do something. Why? He's a selfless servant. There's some of you in this audience that are like that. You'll just serve and serve. Roger and Heather are a lot like that. Larry McDougall's a lot like that. They ministered. The first time I came here, the day one I got here, Larry McDougall was out helping me unload a U-Haul in 95-degree August weather in August 26, 2010. I thought, this guy doesn't know me, and he's an elderly person, and he could die up in this thing. Well, I was thinking it's 95 degrees, Larry. And Larry was a selfless servant, helping me move in. Roger and Heather did the same. There's a lot of people in our congregation who emanate that selfless servant style, and it ministers to people and brings Jesus to people. I've heard it, I've seen it, and I've watched it in 15 years of being here. Some of you, that's you. You're a servant, and you can point others to Jesus through serving. Number 3, the story sharing style. This one kind of speaks to your experiences. It's your testimony. And in John chapter 9, we see this blind man who Jesus healed. And suddenly, right after he's healed, he's on trial for his faith. And his friends and his critics are what in the world, this guy, yada, yada, yada. And he says, look, man, I used to be blind. I once was blind, but now I see, as the hymn says. I don't know, deal with it. That's just what happened. It was his testimony. He had something bad. God came in, Jesus came in, and now there's something good, and he told everybody about it. You all are going to have a lot of that testimony too, Kevin Day, your guys out there at LifeGate. When I was working out there with LifeGate and they did their step 5s, holy smokes, I was like, the Lord's going to use you all. God's going to take your stories and the trauma and the pain, and he's going to watch how he's turned it around and move you in a whole different trajectory of life, and your generations after you are going to be changed. Your stories matter, and they can identify, people can identify, non-believers can identify with your story. And so this guy in John used his story, his testimony. And there's a story-sharing style that maybe you have. God used the story to point people to Jesus. Number 4 is the reason-giving style. This is my style. This is where God has put me. We see this in Paul, that Apostle Paul. When he stood up in Athens, he was at the Areopagus at Mars Hill in a city full of Stoics and Epicureans and philosophers and thinkers, and he gave the reason approach to why Jesus was who he said he was. He gave reasons. This is for what apologetics is. I'm an apologist. This is what I do. This is what God has made me do. This is my style. This is what God has put me in the ability, given me the ability to do. He reasoned with the analytical thinkers and the atheists and the agnostics and all those who just didn't believe. He reasoned with them and gave them reasons to believe Jesus was who he says he was, and God as well. It's a reason-giving style. Style number 5 is the truth-telling style. We see a lot of these here. I think Kevin Day is one of these. I think Brother Lloyd is one of these. We see this in Peter on the day of Pentecost in Acts chapter 2. And those types, they can just boldly give the truth of the gospel of God and use it to reach people. Peter did that, and 3,000 people came to Jesus that particular day. And so they just boldly can tell the truth. When I boldly tell the truth, I make a lot of people mad. So I've tried to figure out how to, I'm not real good at that. I've learned if I boldly tell the truth, people are ready to throw tomatoes at me. It took me a while to figure that out. Kathy Crocker, if she's watching at home probably, she knows, because her husband, who's gone to be with the Lord, when I get on Facebook, he called me Battleship Anton. And once I got that tag, I thought, I'm not doing something right. I'm getting on there with his atheist and agnostic friends, and I'm going to battle, and he'd call me Battleship Anton. And I realized it took me a long time, and I'm still in the process of learning this. Hold me accountable if you see it being done. But I was still trying to win arguments instead of winning hearts. And there's a lot of us in the reason side of things, or we want to go and boldly tell the truth to people, but a lot of times you're just trying to win an argument. You ain't winning any hearts. I wasn't winning hearts on Facebook doing that. The Lord had, I'll joke about this, Roger knows about this, a few other people in the youth group certainly knows about it, but God was trying to get my attention with this, and I'm a pretty stubborn individual, we all know that too, but there would be times that I'd be back there when I was the secretary, and boy, I'd gone to World War III. I'm getting on with an atheist. I'll debate any atheist from any university in the world. I am not intimidated whatsoever. They do not scare me. I'm just willing to get into any argument with any one of them. And so I was doing those things. In that church office, I'm living for the Lord, boy. I'm standing up for the Lord. And I would go and I'd have a paragraph that long on Facebook, and the phone would ring. I'd answer it, and I'd pacewalk around the church or something, or Roger would ask me to do something, or somebody would call, somebody would get in and talk to me. I'd come back, and I never hit the send button. And pretty soon I learned this was the Holy Spirit saying, no, stop doing this. It ain't doing nothing. And he was telling me sometimes you might have the right answer, folks. You might know the right answer, but the Holy Spirit's telling you to do this. This ain't the time. And it's taken me a long time to sort of learn this. So I don't know that I'm the bold, truth-telling type. Because when I do, it's just an aura I have, as Scandinavians have, I guess. We just sort of make people mad with our existence. And so we say anything and everybody's mad at us. It's just part of our personality. So there's some of them, like Lloyd, like Kevin. I mean, I would watch Kevin. I hope I don't mess you up here, Kevin. But when I was working out there with Kevin, you'd get this big, bad gangster guy out of prison that had been an enforcer in a UAB or whatever, and all these prison gangs, and they'd come in like they're the toughest guy since God, they're just like Green Beret tough, right? And they come into Kevin Day's couch, and they're crying within 5 minutes. I mean, it was hard for me not to laugh sometimes, because Kevin and them would start dialoguing, and he would boldly tell the truth about them as a person. You're not very good at life, buddy. Now, if I said that, they'd punch me. If Kevin said it, they'd look at him and go, oh, you're right, and they'd start crying. I mean, it was just amazing to watch again and again and again and again. But that's how the Spirit equipped him. Kevin can boldly tell the truth to a guy that comes right out of prison that would probably snap my neck. And they would sit there and cry and waddle around, and 2 weeks later they're saved and they're being baptized here. I just saw it again and again. So there's people that have this bold style to just proclaim at their job, to their family, whoever, just boldly proclaim the truth. And that's your style. And if you need to examine that and see if it is, do it, and then see what happens. So I think if you focus on 1, 2, maybe 3 of these that fit your personality, you can share your faith in natural ways that God will use. Try it. See what it'll do. So I'm going to conclude by this. I want to wrap up and summarize it one more time. The friendship building style. It's relational. You share your faith through genuine friendships. You build trust. You kind of earn your right to speak. You invite others into community, and spiritual conversations blossom over time. Some of you are bridge builders like that. You reach people for Jesus by simply being consistent and present and caring. And you build a friendship, and they see Jesus through you. Number 2, the selfless serving style. It's compassion. You show the love of Jesus through acts of service. You help meet physical, emotional, and practical needs. You open spiritual conversation through kindness. Some of you share your faith by putting on the towel and serving like Jesus. The story sharing style, number 3, it's personal. You tell your story about what Jesus has done. No one can take that from you. You don't have to have the right answers. You connect with people emotionally and personally that way, and it's certainly easy to relate to non-believers. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to be intimidated by not having all the answers, but you have a story that nobody can deny. Tell it. Those of you in here that are story-sharing people. Number 4, the reason-giving style, it's intellectual. You engage people's mind, and you address those objections they have. You use logic. You use evidence. You use apologetics to explain and defend the faith that we believe in. It'll reach skeptics and analytical thinkers in our conversations. Some of us are like Paul. We're called to reason with other people. But don't do what I did. You're not here to win an argument. You're here to win a heart. That's the hardest thing for us logicians to do. We got to realize we're here to win hearts, not win arguments. You don't have to be right, even if you're convinced that the Bible proves you are. We got to win hearts. And then the truth-telling style, it's boldness. You just speak truth clearly and directly to people. You have the courage to challenge others to respond to Jesus. And the main thing is, you help people get across the finish line. Don't be the person that just wants to be the bold one because you want to think you're a tough guy and you're all courageous and stuff. You're there to help people get across the finish line. Bring that boldness and then say, now, choose you to stay whom you're going to serve. Get them to the finish line. Because if your boldness doesn't get to that point, I don't think you're part of what the author intends for us to think about there. So what style fits you best? That's what I want you to think about. God has wired each of us differently. That's the other thing. I always tell people this in the church. A church will operate real smooth if you'll operate in the gift God gave you. If you'll operate in the gift God gave you, do it. Don't tell the leaders how to lead. You're not a leader. That's okay. because you're a servant, or you have hospitality, or you have discernment. Trust me, the leaders can usually use some discernment sometimes. Don't just assume because we're in leadership positions at a church that we have discernment, for example. In my case, I don't have mercy. I'm not an encourager. This is not something I'm very good at. God gives it to me from time to time. He'll give you any gift, I believe, at any moment in time when it's needed for somebody. I believe He'll give that to you, but I'm not a merciful person. If the kids in the youth group sort of know this. If they've done something and they know it's wrong, and we've taught them, and their parents have taught them, and the Bible's taught them, and God's taught them, and they do it anyway, and then they're probably going to get to Anton. Well, that's what you get. I mean, you made that decision. You were told by 5,000 people, and you went and did. I don't have the gift of mercy. But there's sometimes that God, the Spirit, will make me merciful at a time. So I do believe that. But I believe each of us are empowered with certain spiritual gifts. Operate in them. You do that. You do that. Don't worry about what other people do and how good or bad they do it or what you think is the best way. That causes church turmoil all the time. It's stuff we have to, preachers, and they got to go clean up all the time and fix these problems, and then we got to pray about it all day long. And we got to just operate in your gifts that God's given you. And I think with your evangelism, do the same. Don't feel intimidated because you're not a smart person. You're like, I'm just not very smart. I don't know how to do these things. Okay, fine. Turn those over to the people that are. Because I might not be good at the other ones. I've told you, I'm not pretty good at the bold part because I make everybody mad, so I'm not going to try to do that. I'm going to stick over here with number 4 and do number 4. And if you're number 5 and you're not good at number 4, so be it. Turn them, get with the people who are number 1, the friendship people, get them to invite you over to their house, invite the person of number 5 and number 4 at the house to have a party and to watch football and to have some fellowship time. And then you start thinking about how to get the conversation with your loved one that trusts you into God. Then when they start asking the questions, number 4 can come in and number 5 can come in. If you'll do that, we'll see more people get saved. And so do what fits you. Don't feel intimidated because you don't have this particular gift or this particular style. But I bet you every person in here, if you're honest, I bet you can identify with one of these 5. Do it. And see what God does through you with that E word, evangelism. Okay? So we're going to do a challenge today. We're not going to have a typical altar call. I'm going to do a challenge. So if you have a cell phone, you can get it out. Take your 666 box, as my father-in-law calls it. Just kidding. He calls it that, and he's probably right on that. Take your cell phones out if you have it. If you don't, you can use one of those Connect cards in the front, and I want you to do something. I think for us ministers, one of the things we can do to help is we hold each other accountable and hold you accountable, and you hold us accountable. I think that's a well-oiled church machine. When everybody sort of works together and we know for the common good, if Kevin Day were to call me out, I'm not going to get defensive and mad about it. I'm going to be like, Lord, what are you trying to tell me through this? What are you trying to tell me through this? Instead of being so defensive if somebody's attacking you, go, Lord, what are you trying to tell me through this? And so I think if we work together and do things together, we'll see some evangelism take place. And so what I'm going to have you do is text this number, okay? So go to text somebody. You're going to text the church number. It is 918-224-7229. That is the church telephone number. 918-224-7229. Now here's what these ministers, I haven't really talked with Lloyd and Roger about this, but if they're mad about this, then they need to go to the altar. So here's what we're going to promise to you. I'm going to promise it, and I know Lloyd and Roger will be willing to do this too, okay? You're going to text us your name. Put your name. I am Gary McGuire. And then the next thing you're going to text is the one person who you want to try to evangelize. I want to evangelize. And we're going to pray for you and those people. I promise you I will. If you text the church who you are and who you're trying to evangelize, the one thing I can promise you is this guy right here, and these two will too. We are going to pray for who you want to evangelize. Focus on one person. Who's the one person in your family? Who's the one person in your job? Who's the one guy at Lifegate next door to you in the room that hasn't made the decision yet? Who's the one person anywhere that you know that's not a Christian and you'd like to evangelize them? Maybe you are number 5 and they need a number 1. I'll tell you, maybe 10 years ago when I first started apologetics, I got a call on Christmas Eve. I was at my mom and dad's house. And one of my good friends here at the church, he called me and said, look, my cousin's coming up, and they're going to go up to the youth room and play games, and we don't really have much, big family stuff, and we're sort of done with that, and they just wanted to come play video games at the youth room. This was well after midnight on Christmas Eve here at the church. And they're atheists. They don't believe in God. But I need some support. I said, I'll come up there. And Mom and Dad could testify that I left at 11 o'clock at night or something on Christmas Eve to come up here. And me and my buddy here at the church, we came in there and he sat there and I sat there while his cousins and a few others played video games up there in the youth room for a little bit. And I played piano and me and him just talked and prayed together till about 2 o'clock in the morning, Christmas Day. And we just asked the Holy Spirit to give us an opportunity just to talk to this atheist, because sometimes atheists, they're real hostile. They don't want to they want to poke fun at all of us Christians, and there's sometimes not the opportunity. And so we prayed right here on Christmas morning that God would open up an opportunity. And we went up there at about 2:30 in the morning, and we just began to have conversations. See, my buddy, he had the family relationship, and he was a number 1 and a number 2. He was a friendship builder, and he was a servant. That's what he did at the church. That's what he did for me. And I was the number 4, and he needed a number 4. And so we went up there in the youth room on Christmas Day. And those of you that know me know that I have been doing some archaeological work in Jordan, and I dig at Sodom, from Sodom and Gomorrah in the Bible. And about halfway through that conversation, she gets out her phone. His cousin that was the atheist gets out her phone and wants me to see this video. You know what the video's on? Poking fun at Sodom and Gomorrah. And I had a chance, because they were both of this scientific realm. They were both in these science disciplines. One of them was an engineer and the other one was into neuroscience or something, I don't know. And all of a sudden we got to have a scientific conversation about archaeology of Sodom and Gomorrah. So the Spirit works things out, and you find your style here, and you'll do that. So text us, text the church who you're evangelizing. My name is so-and-so. I'm trying to evangelize so-and-so. And so looking at the audience, I'm taking a photograph of memory. If you don't text, then I'm going to pray for you that you get conviction. And if you do text us, then we're going to be able to know who we're praying for. I'll know who listened and who didn't care. That's a way to figure that out, I guess. I'm just kidding, sort of. But anyway, text that to the church, and I can promise you that we're going to pray for those people for you. I've been praying for a lot of people a long time. I've been praying for Malia a long time. I don't know where you are. Been praying for Malia a long time. Been praying for Trinity a long time, who you just mentioned from the pulpit. We've been praying for these non-saved people for a long time. You have them in your trumpet every week. There are people that aren't saved that we're praying for. And God will work through that. And Roger could tell you a pretty cool testimony about somebody in his family that was the number 1 person on the list, on the prayer list, who got saved, and the Lord brought him back to life for just a few minutes so he could get saved and then die right after that. So God works through our prayers. He's going to work through your prayers. We're going to pray that God reveals to you which one of these 5 you are and how you can take advantage of that with the person you're evangelizing. And if you think the person you're evangelizing needs something different, we're going to pray that God will reveal to you in this community of faith here who we are and what they are and what they are and they are, so then you can work together on evangelizing somebody. Pray about it at a piano from midnight to 2:30 in the morning. Go up there and watch God do his thing and watch him open up that conversation. And he'll do it. Okay, did everybody send it? Okay, I heard a few of you. All right, so why don't we stand, and then I'll pray, and we'll be done for today. I appreciate your attentiveness. Hope you find this helpful. Lost, saved, evangelism. That's how you do it. Saved, trained, sent.
Hello, everybody. My name is Isaac Womble, a member here at Westside. Thank you so much for joining us for service today. If you feel led by the Lord to give to the Lord, through our ministry here at Westside, you can text GIVE, that's GIVE, to 539-210-3116. Or you can visit us on our website at westsidefwb.org. There you can find other ways to get connected. You can also give there and just find other ways to live a Christ-led life. Once again, thank you so much for joining us for this service. If you want other opportunities to join us for a service, we have Sunday nights at 6 p.m. and Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. and of course, the service that you're probably watching right now, the 11 a.m. Sunday morning service. So once again, thank you so much for joining us. May God continue to bless your life as you continue to seek Him.